now my mind is blown. No surprise, guess I should have known. Oh, my mind, now my mind is blown. No surprise, guess I should have known. You got control of me, break my barricades. Walls are crumbling, grounds they shake. You came to save, but it's way too late. Every single time you stay, I cave.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Neurodivergent News, resources for living in a quote-unquote normal world. We are redefining what it means to be neurodivergent. In our world, it is not damaged, it is just different from you. So today, we are going to have an absolutely wonderful show. I am Deanna Brakefield, your host and the owner of Lionheart Kingdom Marketing, as a little aside. I am a mother of 7 beautiful children, 6 of which are neurodivergent. I am ADHD, and my husband is on the spectrum as well. So you know we have a grand chaos in our house on a day-to-day basis. Today, I have with me a lady that understands the chaos of raising neurodivergent children, understands the chaos of running a business when you are neurodivergent yourself, and she has somehow managed to find the time to write a book on top of all of it. I wish I had that kind of organization. Miss Kay Burnham, welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And what a lovely introduction. I sound so important.
Hey, no, everybody, every perspective and experience is absolutely important, especially when we're building a dialogue.
Oh, absolutely. That's the heart of what I want to do in this world is create dialogue.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so well, I am an adult diagnosed, in fact, very, very recently diagnosed ADHD woman. And I have been in a completely different career until very recently. And in my discovery of my neurodivergence, I realized that everything I have been doing was really about creating this inclusive kind of environment and advocating for the voices of people who don't often get their voices heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I embarked on my journey of entrepreneurship in the second half of life, which, as you have said, is very interesting and chaotic as a neurodivergent person, I realized I had a lot to share with the community. And I sat down and thought about who am I and who is my family and what have we been through and what is it that I could do in this world to make a difference for people that are coming behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set out on a completely different career for what I used to be. I used to work in live entertainment ticketing, in customer service, making sure that people had extraordinary applause-worthy experiences when they came to my venue. So I took that and went, well, I want to make applause-worthy experiences for this community everywhere in their life.
Okay.
And where do I start? Well, I start with parenting. Because the one thing I know in this world is that everyone wants to be the best parent they can.
Yes.
But not everyone has the resources to know how to do that for themselves and for their children. And it's hard to find them in this community.
Yes, most of the resources for parenting are absolutely geared at neurotypicals.
Mm-hmm. And the ones, and a lot of the ones that are geared toward the neurodivergent community are written by authors who are not part of the community.
Yes, ma'am.
They are experts, they are psychologists, they are people who have spent a lifetime studying it. But there is a difference between that and the lived experience.
Absolutely.
And I happen to have both.
So tell me a little bit about your kids. I mean, we talked a little bit in the pre-interview.
My kids are, I mean, the the reason I do everything in this world. My girls are amazing, and they are about to turn, and I can't believe this, they are about to turn 25 and 27.
Oh, wow.
And in the last year, I have been helping to set them up to learn how to live an independent life.
Okay.
So they're currently roommates in an apartment that I fund for them. And they are learning what that means and how to live in a space together and share responsibilities and find employment and all of these wonderful things that we have to do when we are adulting.
My favorite.
Yes, and that was sarcastic. Wonderful was said sarcastically. Um, so they, this book was written because of the journey we all took together, and they have absolutely given me permission to share all our stories. They really know that our family can hopefully inspire others and to know what's possible. At one point, we were told that my youngest daughter would probably never live an independent life, that she'd probably need to be institutionalized because she was nonverbal until she was in first grade. Um, and we finally got the resources, or started to get the resources we need. But this was at a time when there was even less understood about autism and even less understood about autistic girls.
Right.
And so a lot of the stuff in this book is what I cobbled together as I knew what I knew about my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to find the supports they needed, regardless of what any doctor was telling me or supposed expert. And so I now know this became my special interest, which great. I love it. I've always been about learning about the human condition and what that means. So this is just a new flavor. And this is the book I wrote is the book I wished I'd had when I was raising them.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little bit about the book. I mean, is there a specific, chapter or story that stands out the most?
Oh my gosh, the stories in it are so wonderful. This community is so giving with their stories of, success and hope and all of that. But I'll share the story about my youngest and when I started teaching her how to be mindful and started actually, I didn't realize it, but teaching her emotional regulation skills.
Okay.
When she entered middle school, it was incredibly difficult for her. And she was in a mainstream class with assistance and struggled with communication. And so she would become incredibly frustrated and have pretty severe meltdowns in class and then come home really embarrassed. And it was difficult for her. It was difficult for her teachers, for the other kids. No one really knew what to do. And so I had been practicing mindful breathing for a while to help with my frustration. So I thought, I'm going to teach her this. I'm going to teach her how to just take 3 really deep breaths so that she can kind of get herself together.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'll shortcut this story because it was months of working on this. And she got to the point, we worked on it at home, when she'd start to melt down, okay, now use your breath. Like, let's do our breathing together. And we would start working on this. And it finally got to the point where she came home one day and said, I told my teacher I needed space to breathe outside, and they let me go outside, and I was okay. And it was like instant tears down my face. Just, oh my gosh, it made the difference. And from that point forward, even now, when we talk, she's like, okay, I'm doing my breathing, Mom. I'm doing my breathing. And and she'll start naming all the tools that she's learned through these holistic ways of approaching what she needed. It wasn't necessarily what the doctors were telling us to do, but it was what I knew was working for her.
It sounds like you didn't just teach her, though, about how to regulate herself. It sounds like you were teaching her to advocate for herself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She has taken now classes. She's been lucky enough to be able to take classes in how to advocate for herself. And she's amazing. I just know she's going to do things that change this world.
It sounds like you're very proud of her. And we are talking about your less extreme diagnosed daughter at the moment, correct?
No, this was my most extreme. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there is a lot of hope there.
Yep. 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 And it really took getting her to the right environment and for us as a family, and that extends beyond, um, just my immediate in-home family. It extended to my mom and dad who were local to us, and my aunt and uncle who were local to us, and educating them on how to support her. Um, so it took a lot of family support. It took getting her into the schooling environment in her high school years that dramatically changed everything because the teachers got her and they listened to us. Our IEPs changed dramatically. We were able to really connect with the support team. By this point, we had learned how to advocate for her and the right words to say and the things to tell them that she needed. And it was a team that listened and responded. And
That's
she prides herself on the fact that her dad was called into the middle school at least once or twice a week through her entire middle school environment. And in high school, he was called in once, period.
wow.
She was able, and her support teams were able to get her to a point where she could manage her emotions, she could manage her environment, she knew how to advocate for what she needed in the moment. It was beautiful to watch.
I can only imagine my older children are still not entirely there.
It is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. That's the part that it doesn't get enough attention, I think, is I've started calling it a neuro-privileged world, right? Because it is a privilege to walk through the world that's built for you. So in a neuro-privileged world, parents who are not neuroprivileged, who are neurodiverse, start out at a disadvantage, right? It's harder. We have to spend more energy finding the resources we need because they're not as plentiful. We often have to spend more money and or more time in order to have the things that someone who's neuroprivileged can just walk into any store or doctor's office and get.
Okay.
And so the part of this book I think that I'm most excited about is the family support.
Hmm.
Is the chapters that talk about how you support your entire family. And then I devote an entire chapter to how you take care of yourself. Because I know for me, my self-care is often what went by the wayside when time was short.
Absolutely.
And when I look back now, I can see in hindsight how there were ways I might have been able to work more self-care in if I understood it better and if I understood my time better. And so that's what I've provided for parents in here too. It's not just about how you can support your kids, but it's how do you support yourself?
It's
In the
that
book, I said,
theory of you put your own oxygen mask on before the person next to you.
exactly. You have to have a solid foundation that you build your house on, or your house isn't going to stand very long,
Mhm.
right? That's the parent self-care. So I think that's a real difference in this book is that it's not just about, hey, here's a bunch of stuff you can do for your kid. It's here's a bunch of stuff you can do for your kid that you can tailor to your specific needs and you can do for your family, for your siblings, for your extended family, and how you take care of yourself.
So, if you don't mind me getting a little bit personal, what did self care look like for you before you began to clue into everything that you?
Oh, self-care that I would not recommend for anyone. I mean, I was working a really high pressure, more than 40 an hour a week job. Thankfully, my late husband was working a job where he had more flexibility. Our hours worked out, so that was great. But my self-care looked like coming home at night, scarfing down dinner, sitting and talking with my kids for a little while, maybe going upstairs and saying, I'm going to get ready for bed. I'm going to wind down and having a few minutes to breathe. I might come downstairs and watch a TV show that would take my mind off of things where I could laugh. Because laughter has always been very freeing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would help release some of the tension and stress of the day. And then I'd go upstairs, write in my journal if I had the energy, and fall asleep and get up and do it all over again. So it was not real self-care.
No, it does not sound like it was very healthy for your mind either.
No, no. But what I've learned since is that it doesn't have to take a lot of time in your day to find healthy ways to disconnect and release the stress.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things like that mindful breathing, being able to stop and recognize when you're starting to feel tension and stress, and engaging in breathing that way actually changes, even for the neurodiverse brain, our parasympathetic nervous system works the way it works. And it's going to recognize those recognize those signals coming in.
Right.
Deep, slow breath means I don't need to run from a saber-toothed tiger. So it's those primal systems that we have to connect with. And when we can, in small ways, it changes us.
Okay. So now, I mean, you're what, 15, 20 years further into your journey, and it looks very different for you today because it's not just that you have the tools, but your children are out of the house.
Yep.
How do you care for yourself now, and what sort of situations do you find yourself in that trigger needing self-care?
Well, I still have meltdowns. That still happens. I still get overstimulated or, emotionally or physically, and I'll have a meltdown. I'm starting to better understand those signs that it's coming on.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of different ways now that I engage with myself. Like I've learned over many years of hard work to counter the narratives that run in my mind, to stop those runaway thought trains, to connect with, not to get too scientific, but my polyvagal system, and really learned how to get in touch with my neuro scientific parts of my brain and all of these things, and just kind of like work them to my advantage. And so I know I need more rest than I was giving myself. And so I make sure I plan rest for times when I hope it will be available to me. I use language a lot and words a lot to help refocus my brain in a more healthy manner. Things like when I'm starting to kind of spiral on a negative thought or rumination, and I'm thinking about how challenging something is, I will add words like "for now" at the end of it, because when I say, oh, this is so challenging for now, I at least have the hope that it'll be different in the future. I carve out time for my interests. It brings me great pleasure to spend time deep in my watercolor paintings, just whatever comes out of my mind onto the paper. And so I carve out time for that now in my day or in my week. Some weeks I don't get it, but it's always there for me.
Were you able to do that when your daughters were still at home, or has that been a more recent addition?
So that the ability to carve out more time is a recent addition, but it was something I started while my youngest was still at home.
Okay. So this is the point where I normally ask a question. There is a stereotype, that neurodiverse individuals, we come up with the most unique and interesting hobbies. So as I always ask my guests, what is one unique interest or hobby that you have developed?
So it always sounds weird to people that this is my hobby. But my hobby is really reading scientific studies, like pure scientific studies, not books people have written, but I will go to Google Scholar, I will go to my alumni libraries, and I will do deep dives into just some random topic that I want to know about. And I now understand, because of the way that my neurotype works, I can read all these things very quickly, assimilate all the information, and assimilate it with the other scientific information I've read from other things that are not related.
Uh-huh.
And I sit down and draw conclusions about it and make up all these really complicated theories around how things really work that no one's thought of because they're not bothering to connect the dots between things.
Oh my gosh, I love it. It sounds like you are a huge analytical.
Uh,
No, that's actually really
Excuse me.
interesting. I mean, I know that our brains don't work quite like everyone else's do, and so we can connect dots that other people miss. But I've never
Mhm.
heard anyone doing it with actual scientific journals. I love it.
Thank you. Yep. Before I discovered my neurodivergence, I always said, I just think my brain works differently than others. I'm now not sure why I didn't clue in that might mean I was neurodivergent. But yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
So, what is one conclusion, or tell us about one conclusion that you've drawn that was a little bit out there?
Oh, so most of my conclusions really come between connecting science and spiritual beliefs.
Okay,
So
got my attention.
when people talk about reincarnation, I often tell people I don't believe in any of the reincarnation theories that others have come up with, but I really strongly believe in my interpretation of it, which is that we are made of energy, which is, we have electrical impulses going through our body. We know that.
Right.
And we talk about, the light going out in someone's eyes when they die. That's the energy. It's gone. The energy is gone, right? Well, we know in the scientific universe that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just is. So if that energy is part of us and it moves on into some other form of energy, why wouldn't it be that even a little part of that energy could come back down into the human body as that energy is aligning to run a new human?
Okay.
Maybe that's what reincarnation and this idea that we can tap into past lives is because that tiny little bit of energy that's inside of us was actually inside someone else before.
So, by extension, it sounds like you've came up with the idea that there is almost a universal pool of energy, a universal consciousness.
Yeah. Hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is not as out there as you think, by the way. You would be surprised the number of neurodiverse people that think along those same lines.
I am discovering that very much so. And I have a whole mind map that takes all of these. I just keep piling science and scientific theories and things into that align with different spiritual beliefs. And I just start dragging the lines around. And that's my hobby, really, is making mind maps of all this stuff to connect it.
I would be really interested personally in seeing some of that one day.
I'm happy to share it someday.
So, Miss Kay, we've talked about your book. We've talked about how you help parents with themselves and their own children. We've even talked a little bit about your past and your kids. Is there any last thoughts that you have for the audience before we wrap up?
It's a saying that I have really clung to the last couple of years, and it really helps me, especially when someone who is neuroprivileged is speaking about something and they refer to it as simple. And that is, simple does not equal easy.
Okay.
And that's just something I think I like to tell people to hold on to, is that even if something seems like it's simple, 3 steps, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And when you can accept that simple doesn't mean easy, it actually makes it easier because you're less frustrated.
Yeah, I can see that. I like that a lot. So, if someone in my audience would like to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Let's see. Well, my my website should be up soon. It is under construction. So if it is not under construction, that is the best way to get to me,
Okay.
which is perceivingpossibilities.com.
Okay.
Other than that, they can find me on LinkedIn, and they can find me on Facebook, Perceiving Possibilities on Facebook.
Excellent. Well, For those of you that are listening, I will get all of her wonderful social media links and everything from her, and you will be able to find all of that information in the associated blog post to this episode. It has been absolutely wonderful. I've loved our conversation. It's been extremely engaging. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure and a privilege to be here.
Well, this has been another episode of Neurodivergent News. You will find us every Monday and Thursday on kfred.com and on KFred Radio. We look forward to engaging you in the future. Everybody have a blessed and wonderful day.